I'm Caitlin. I'm a certified business coach. And as an action coach, my real objective is to support the business owners in my community. So I'm really excited to be here today with the Brampton Entrepreneur Center and to invest the next 90 minutes talking with you about some different sales and marketing ideas that you can use to make sure that your conversations with your customers and with your prospects are about the value that you offer, not negotiating with them for a lower price. And we're going to cover a lot of ground today, but this session is designed to give you some tools that you can take away and implement quickly. So this is like less of marketing 101 and more action focused. And I say that we're investing our time together. I say that deliberately. A mentor once told me that you can either spend your time or invest it. And I know you've made a choice to be here today. So what I'd like to do is spend the next hour or so presenting a whole bunch of information. And then I'm going to make myself available after this as well. If you're serious about building your business and if you want to talk more in depth about your own situation, then I hope you follow up with me afterwards. In the meantime, if you have a specific question or something in particular that you're hoping to learn or to get from today's session, please do go ahead and put that in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat throughout. So as your coach, at least for the next 90 minutes, I have 4 goals that I want to share with you before we really dive in. So here are my goals. The first is that I want to educate you, right? I want to give you tools to help you build an amazing business. I'm not here to motivate you. After all, if you motivate somebody who's on a path to nowhere, they're just going to do dumb stuff faster. So I want to educate you and really make this a training ground. The second thing for today is that I want to coach you, right? That's what I do. It's what I love to do. So if you do have questions, please do go ahead, fire them away in the chat, and I'll pause here and there to answer them. And of course, if your business is really healthy, maybe you can't wait to run a couple of laps with me. That's great. But if that's not the case, if that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, that's fine too. Okay, no matter where you are now, there should be something that you can take away from today to improve your business. The third thing is I want you to walk out with ideas that you can use right away. I am an action coach. I am not a think about it coach or do it later coach. And finally, I want us to have fun doing it. I got into this line of work because I truly believe that building a business can give you more life and not suck the life out of you. So, while your business is a serious part of your life, that doesn't mean we can't have some fun. So I'd like to get to know you a little bit, and I know we don't have time to go around formally for introductions, but if you'd like to go ahead and put your name, your website, or your social media link in the chat, that would be wonderful. And while we do that, we're going to do some hands up. Okay, so here's the point where everybody turns on their video, or at least finds that raise hand button. Okay, if you're not in a spot where you can turn on your video. So the first one is I want you to put your hand up if you are working full-time in your business. Okay, if you're working full-time in your business, go ahead, put your hand up. Okay. What about if you're working part-time, if this is like a side hustle? Any hands up there? Jennifer, I'm not seeing hands. Do you see them coming up, or am I just not seeing them here? We might not have the functionality to do this. That's too bad. Okay, go ahead, do it on your own. I won't get the benefit of it, or put it in the chat, but they're still good questions. Okay, so if you're working full time, if it's a side hustle, or both hands up if your business has taken over your entire life. Okay. The other question is whether you are confident already in your marketing, right? Whether you're getting a good steady flow of high quality leads. Okay, and are you confident in your sales, right? Or what are you doing to convert those leads? Maybe we could use the chat for this. Maybe could you rate yourself from 1 to 10? Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10. On how comfortable you are as the primary salesperson for your company. 8, 7, great. Perfect. Some confident salespeople, a 6. Great. Okay. That's useful to know because quite often I get a 1 or a 2, right? Somebody who's like, oh, sales, I hate it, right? I want to do what I do best. I don't want to be bothered with it. But it sounds like for the most part, people are familiar with these conversations and happy to have them. So that's great. That puts us on a really good footing going forward because we can talk about optimizing rather than how to have them in the first place. So lovely. Okay, thank you for your interactive participation. So you probably heard this before, but I put it up on the slide because it's true. The only way to fail is by failing to participate. And when you're trying to sell somebody your product or your service, sometimes you win, right? Sometimes you win the business and sometimes you learn. Okay, it's not about win or lose, it's about winning and learning, because every time you do something and it doesn't get you the result that you want, there is something to learn from it. And when you truly learn the lesson, you only need to learn it once because you adapt what you're doing. So as with a lot of things in business and in life, you get out what you put in. And when you're in your own business, kind of implementing some of these tips and strategies for today's session, what I want you to do most of all is measure the results, okay? And pay attention to what works for you and what doesn't. Because if you put in 100% in terms of effort and 100% as you measure the results and adopt the new learnings and adapt what you're doing, then you will get 100% out of it. And after all, I'm sure we've all made mistakes in business. I'm sure some of us are experts at it. And the experts will tell you that the recovery and the course correction are more important, but being timid or intimidated by critical roles in your company because of a fear of failure, that's what really holds us back. So the best path forward is to do the work to prepare, to make decisions quickly, own the consequences, and own the learning that comes from them. And sometimes the thing that holds us back is really ourselves. And that's why I like to start here with the definition of a successful business as a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. And I found that a lot of people understand this wrong. And I certainly did, right, with my first business. I launched kind of a technical freelance service business as I finished grad school. And it was a great business. I had great opportunities. It was really interesting work. But it was a job, right? I'd say it was a great business. It wasn't a business. It was a job. It worked because of me, not for me, which meant that I did everything. And when I wasn't working, I wasn't generating leads. And when I was generating leads, it was because I wasn't working. So the cash flow, as you can imagine, was like a roller coaster, which made the whole thing stressful and ultimately unsustainable. And that's a really common experience. Like me in my mid-20s, a lot of people think that having a business is about creating a job for yourself. But it's definitely not about being busy, right? It's not spelled with a Y. It's not about filling your time from 9 to 5. So in this definition, in my new definition, it's about creating a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. And that's something I really took on board as I compared my freelance job with some of the people I was doing work for. And I realized that if you've got to be there every day, you work too hard, right? This is the reason you have to work so hard, is because your business doesn't. So what happens when you want to take some vacation? What happens if you want to take the summer off? Can you do it? How can you set your business up so it allows you to do that? And a lot of people end up in the opposite scenario, right? They end up trapped or stuck in their business. Some are working harder than their employees and sometimes for less money. So the aim with most of my clients is to get the business to work so you don't have to. And if that's the kind of business that you want to build, there are 6 steps. Now, this is a separate presentation that we're doing a little later in the month, but what I want to do right now is give a quick overview of the 6 steps. And so we can see where the sales and marketing piece fits in, okay? So here we go. We start at the first level with the fundamentals. And you've got this mastered when you're not running around putting out fires or feeling like that sense of chaos in the business. If you've ever felt like it's running you rather than the other way around, then we start here to get you out of that reactive mode. So this is not only about being able to deliver your product or service well at a high standard, it's also about understanding what you're building towards, right? What the vision is. So you're not scrambling around or randomly stopping and starting things, and you've got your calendar under control, so you have predictable and stable work hours, right? This is also about understanding your financial statements and making sure that you've got access to the right legal and financial professionals who are giving you advice. At stage 2, now we're working from a stable foundation, okay? And now it's all about cash flow. And like me in my first business, this is something that a lot of people struggle with. Either they're not making enough money to grow at the rate they want to grow, or cash flow is unpredictable. So when I say niche, this is where we're really looking at your marketing. Okay, this is where we're fine-tuning your sales process, and this is really where we're going to be focusing today. Okay, and when we're ready, we can go up to stage 3, which is leverage. And the definition here is doing more with less, which makes sense, right? Because now the sales process is dialed in, you're speaking directly to your target customer. And so how can we take that knowledge and that experience and now build in some efficiencies to buy back your time? And we need systems to do that. So if you find yourself saying something like, well, no one can do this as good as me, or, if you want a job done well, you've got to do it yourself, it's likely because there are no systems. And that means you have to work a lot of hours to get the job done well. But once the systems are in place, then we can start thinking about structuring the team for future growth. Okay, this isn't just about going out and hiring people. In fact, you've probably hired a few kind of entry level or admin positions maybe before this point. This is about hiring the right people who are actively going to help you grow the business, right? Remembering that if you are running this thing forever, it still is a job for you. So one way to get it to work so you don't have to could be by putting a GM in charge or a COO, which leaves you open to focus more on the growth side. Okay, and here's where that comes in handy, synergy level, because now you can start multiplying your success, right? That could be franchising the company, could be moving into a new territory or a new market. Because, if it's working perfectly in one location, what's to stop the same great business succeeding in another? And finally, the results. Okay, this is a different game. This is now, investing, buying new businesses and running those, however you see it going. But it's kind of a fun exercise, right? To think about what you could be doing when your business is kind of running itself. Now, a lot of people, have some of these things in place already, but there's often gaps or room to improve. So it's not always like a sequence of do this, do this, do this, do this. Sometimes this gives us a framework to figure out, where to start and how to solidify the foundation and the systems that are in place. So for today, as I said, we're really going to focus on that niche stage. Okay, for a lot of business owners, marketing and sales are areas where they might not have any formal training. Okay, and it takes a little while to figure out how to get comfortable with it and how to make it work. A lot of the time, people try and give this marketing piece away to somebody else, like pretty much from the get-go. They hire someone to do it, or they work with a freelance agency. But I just caution that as the business owner, you really need to understand, who you're trying to attract and the value that you're offering. That's not something that anybody else can define for you. And of course, if you also want to keep customers coming back, right? So let's think about lead generation in the context of like overall profitability and retention. So as I said, I'll be back on the 26th to talk about these steps in a lot more detail at each level. But right now we're gonna zoom in, okay, to this niche level, which is all about predictable cash flow and profitability. Okay, and if your prospects are kind of calling you up or emailing you, and their only question for you is, how much do you charge? Okay, I don't know if you guys get this question all the time. Well, how much do you charge? How much is it? They're already price sensitive and they're shopping on price. Your sales process becomes that little bit harder. But if they've already seen something from you or heard something about you, and they already know kind of what makes you different or why you stand out or what the specific benefits are of working with you in particular, then your sales process becomes much easier, kind of grease the wheels. So we can use your marketing tools to set you up for success in that first sales conversation. Okay, so they're not coming in quite so cold. And it's really easy to assume that what your prospects are after is a low price. But if you have a strong niche, right? If you have that way to differentiate your product or your service from your competitors, then that changes this conversation. Okay, so we use the marketing to do a lot of the heavy lifting and make people excited to work with you because of what you can do for them. Of course, this isn't to say that price is never going to be a factor and you can charge whatever you like, right? And it's not to say it shouldn't be a factor, because of course, people have budgets and people like to get a good deal. So, if all else is equal, if there are no noteworthy differences between you and other people who could offer a similar solution, then why wouldn't they buy on price? But that's the trick, right? We don't want all else to be equal. We want to kind of tip the scales. So we do that with your marketing. And marketing has two rules. Okay, the first is communication. Okay, you need to let people know that you exist and what you do. And the second is education. Okay, to educate your potential customers on the value of your offering. Because study after study has shown that people don't buy on price alone. Maybe there are certain commodities that are pretty much the same everywhere. So, maybe gas for your car, for example. Okay, maybe in that case, price is pretty much the only factor you care about. But for the most part, we care a lot more about getting good value for our money, getting a sweet deal. And to get that value, we're actually willing to pay more. So I'll give you an example of this. Recently, I had to get new tires for my car. So for me, I don't know the first thing about cars. I don't care about tires. This was really one of these commodity type purchases, right? I just want something that's not going to fall off my car. I'm not looking for high performance. I don't care about the brand. I don't care about the tread pattern. I would assume that if they're on the market, they've passed some sort of safety test, and the cheapest one is going to get me where I want to go, right? And I'm sure somebody knows more than me about this and is like laughing right now, but there you go. I was an uneducated customer. So I called up my dealership and I asked them, how much is it for a new set of tires? And they told me. And I called somewhere else to get a comparison and I asked, how much is it going to cost to get a new set of tires? And they told me. And then somebody said, oh, there's this other place. You should check there. So I called them and I said, how much is it for a new set of tires? And the person who answered the phone asked an awesome sales question. She said, sure, I can help you with that. But first, is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions just to make sure I'm giving you the right information? Okay, what's anyone going to say to that? Sure, of course. So they asked me a couple of questions about my driving habits. They took the time to give me some information. Did you know some tires really last longer, so you might not have to buy them again for a while? In a 5-minute phone call, they gave me 3 or 4 different variables that I could factor into my tire purchase. Okay, so I'm no longer just asking for a low price, because now they've educated me in these other variables, these other factors that probably I should care about. And I bet you can guess how the story ends, right? Of course, I take my car to the 3rd place. Of course, I end up spending more than the quotes from either of the first 2 places. And I absolutely didn't regret it, because I felt like I was getting really good value for my money. So in your marketing, communication and education are each vital. Okay, your job is to educate your prospects on the value that you offer. So this then becomes a really key question for you, right? What value other than price do you offer your customers? What are the other factors for your industry in particular that do or could go into someone's decision to make a purchase? So this key differentiator, right, this key value that you offer can become your unique selling proposition or your USP. And this is the core message that you absolutely want to communicate to your prospects and even to your customers. Okay, this could be one particular benefit or service that only you provide, or that you do better than anyone else who's out there. And if you can stand out like that, right, if you can establish your own uniqueness, then it doesn't really matter whether or not you're the cheapest, because the people who want that thing can only get it from you. So I find a lot of people, I'm going to pick on professional service providers in particular here, they have some trouble figuring out what sets them apart, okay? Like what makes one accountant different from another? It's not like there's a lot of scope for creativity in the profession, right? But that's actually okay, because the uniqueness doesn't have to be in the actual product or service that you offer. It can also be something to do with your process, or something to do with the experience of doing business with you. And again, like going back to this point, if you don't have this, if you don't have a point of difference, then why do your customers choose to do business with you rather than someone else? You know, you're back to that question of how much does it cost, right? Where can I get the lowest price? So I'm going to talk about some really good examples of a USP, but first let me squash some common examples that we hear a lot. You know, when I start talking about USP, inevitably someone says, well, it's the great customer service that I provide, okay? Now, I'm not saying that you don't provide great customer service. I'm sure you do. But the problem is everybody says it. Right? Everyone says they give great customer service, and it becomes like a baseline, becomes the standard. So if everyone is saying it, then how unique is it? And is it believable when all of your customers are saying the same thing, right? So customer service is kind of a hard one to market. Another one I get a lot has to do with experience, right? I have 30 years of experience doing this kind of work. Now, that could be really meaningful to a certain type of customer, okay? But for most people, maybe it's not going to be a critical factor, right? If you have 30 years experience and the next person they talk to has 12, you probably each have enough experience to be able to handle what needs to get done. So it maybe is not that compelling from the customer's perspective, as meaningful as it is to you. So these 2 points, right? Like it has to be unique and it has to be meaningful. So let's talk about these a little bit more. So if you're using words like the cheapest, like great customer service, high quality, speedy, convenient, honest, best, it kind of becomes a part of this like jumble of fluff marketing words and hyperbole that we're all bombarded with every day. A good USP can't be generic or vague, okay? You can't please everyone all the time. So focus your sights and get really, really specific. It also has to be exciting. It can have like a what factor and kind of make people do a double take, something that kind of cuts through the noise. So there was an ActionCOACH client in Nevada. ActionCOACH is a franchise, so there's like 1,000 ActionCOACHs around the world, okay? So one of us was in Nevada, and they were working with an air conditioning company. This was a mid-sized company and they were doing pretty well. You got to imagine, right, in Nevada, there's good demand for AC services. So after talking with their coach about this, they decided that fast service was going to be the premise for their USP. Now, fast service, you're probably thinking, well, that's not creative, right? That's not unique. Lots of companies are already saying they have fast service. So they took it a step further. Okay, they said, because we have 58 technicians on call 24 hours a day, we can guarantee that your home or business will be cool within 2 hours of your call, or there's no charge for the repair. Now that is specific, that is unique. No one else had that offer. Of course, they couldn't actually like get there and fix every call within 2 hours, okay? Sometimes parts needed to be ordered in or whatever, right? But what they would do is they bought a bunch of portable units. And so they would show up quickly and set up a portable unit at no cost to the customer right away. And this worked, right? Like this 2-hour guarantee worked. The number of calls quadrupled in a month because the offer was exciting and compelling enough, and it was different enough that it really, really stood out. Okay, it got people talking. It almost makes you like the obvious choice, right? So your customers start thinking, well, like I'd have to be an idiot to do business with someone else, you know, regardless of price. And another great example of this kind of something that gets people talking. This is a plumbing company in the Midwest in the US. It's a small plumbing company, okay? And he was working with his coach. He was doing great, okay, to the point where the local chamber of commerce was giving the owner of the company an award. So they had this big gala evening. This is pre-pandemic, obviously. So his wife bought a new dress. He put on a nice tux. And it was Friday night, and they were dressed up, and they're heading out for the gala when his phone rings with a service call. Okay, now his company was doing well, but not that well. He still had the evening on call. And his wife was at this point giving him that look, right? I don't know if anybody is familiar with this look, but like, don't you dare answer that. But he did. Responsible business owner answered the call, and it was this older woman, right? She had some problem with her sink. So off he went in his tux, toolbox in hand. He fixed the issue in like 5 minutes, gave her a bill, and then off they went to the gala. Okay. The next day, his phone rings again. And it's another kind of older woman. And she asks, "Are you the plumber in a tux?" Because her friend told her all about this new plumber who did house calls in a tux. So he laughs a bit and off he goes. And the next day his phone rings again. And it doesn't stop, right? It's not a joke anymore. So he buys tuxes for his team, and he prints new business cards with a picture of a tux, and they become the plumbers in tuxes, right? And his customers love it. And the business is like off to the races. But this is the point, okay? In a trade where the customers know that any number of plumbers can fix a tap, what are they shopping for? It's not only somebody who can do the job, not only somebody who could do the job and not charge too much money. They want someone professional. They want someone they trust because they're letting them into their home. They want someone tidy who's not going to make a big mess. They want someone with pants that fit so they don't see more of the plumber than they want to. And of course, a plumber in a tux is going to deliver all of that. So I'm not recommending that what you really need to do is go find some really gimmicky thing, but is there something noteworthy that you can use kind of as shorthand to communicate that you know what your customers want and you can deliver it well? Now, when you're the first to offer something specific, it's pretty hard for others to copy you. There's no point being the second plumber in a tux in town. So this is another story. There's a bike store, okay? They were not the only bike store in town, and they had a pretty good range of products. They had a knowledgeable team. The store was in a decent location. So they had some good things going for them, right? But there was nothing really that they could point to that was like miles better than their competitors. So they did some research into how other bike stores marketed. And they found that, well, every single one of them sold kids' bikes. There wasn't a clear leader in that category. So they ran a marketing campaign where they positioned themselves as the leader in kids' bikes. Okay, come in, we'll make sure we get you the best fit. We'll make sure the helmet fits. You know, your kids are going to be safer. And hey, you might even like pick up some riding tips from our kid-friendly staff. Now, this wasn't new, okay? They already checked fit when kids happened to come in for a new bike. So this actually isn't anything they're doing differently. They just positioned it better. They highlighted it and they called attention to it. They kind of made it their thing. And guess what? Like the kids came in with their parents. The parents checked out the adults' bikes and the other gear. So by carving out that niche, that value of, you know, we make your kids safer on their bikes, sales actually increased in their adult bikes as well. Okay, so in a market where everybody basically offered the same thing, they found a way to appeal to some core values of safety, being safety conscious, being family friendly, having relevant expertise, and this really appealed to the customers that they were after. So the question is, you know, how do you stand out? What do you do that is either different from your competitors, or there's something in your sales process, or something responding to market demand? And then when you've kind of got an idea for that, you know, how well is that represented in your marketing materials and in your sales materials? And you can see, like from any of the examples, but the bike shop maybe in particular, you know, now they have the advantage, because if anybody else says like, oh, hey, like we do that too, like we fit your kids on a bike, it looks like they're kind of copying the first store, and people generally want the original, not the copycat. So the rule of being first tells us that being the first to position yourself a certain way does give you the advantage, even if it's something that others are already doing, but maybe not promoting very well. Does that make sense? And by the way, I have a handout that will kind of ask you some questions and guide you towards your own USP, your own point of difference. So I'm going to provide that to Jen and ask her to kind of distribute it to everybody who's on the call today, so you can get going on some of this work. Thanks. Okay, so the process of defining and positioning your unique selling proposition becomes like the keystone to your other marketing efforts. It's like a really good first step, and investing some time to come up with a uniqueness that really matters. And then you can build the rest of your marketing and even your sales process and even your company culture around it, right? It becomes baked into the business and becomes, what you're known for. Because this is so central, it does have to be carefully chosen, okay? You can't say something like, well, I'm the only IT professional in Brampton who works in a red brick building. Okay, it's unique, but no one cares. So it has to be meaningful. So some actions that you can take, again, this is going to be covered in the handout, but just let's write them down here and you can start thinking about them. First of all, what are some of the fears, concerns, or frustrations that people have when dealing with your industry? In the plumbing example, it might be that people hate waiting around for someone to show up late. They hate tidying up after them. So the tux was like a symbol for the real difference, which is that we're going to be professional and we're going to be clean. Like the bike shop, you can pick some of your competitors, like pick 3 of your competitors and figure out, what do they do well, and what do they do poorly, and kind of assess your business against them. And you will usually find something that makes you different. You can rate each of them and yourself out of 10 on like your service, your product, your knowledge, your experience, your location. If there truly isn't anything there, then we can create a point of difference. But, it saves time to start with already there, where you're already doing differently. Something like 90% of small business owners don't check their competitors regularly. A third thing you can do is you can survey any current customers you have, right? Why did they choose you? Okay, the answer is there, might surprise you. Okay, the next thing is, once you've got that USP in mind, can you structure a guarantee around it? So this could be like that attention-grabbing extreme promise, like that air conditioning company, right? They guaranteed cool air in 2 hours. Another great example is an ActionCOACH client in Australia. Okay, they were a professional photographer who specialized in wedding photos. And I love this example because this is someone who really understood who they were selling to. And they used their guarantee to de-risk wedding photos. Okay, they offered a guarantee that it will not rain on your wedding day. Or if it did, they would restage and reshoot the wedding for free. Now, of course, they cannot control the weather. Okay, but what they did is they did the math and they figured out that, hey, you know what? We live in a climate with not too many rainy days. The cost to reshoot any rainy day weddings is actually fairly low because we can do it midweek. And then because this guarantee was so appealing to their customers, now they could charge a premium for their service, okay? And it more than offset the costs they incurred by honoring the guarantee. Another one I really liked was a residential construction company. They guaranteed that living at home during the construction process wouldn't be stressful, or they would pay for your accommodation elsewhere. Okay, they'd pay for your hotel. Because this is a fairly meaningful promise, living in a construction site can be really stressful, right? So they built all of their business processes out against this no stress guarantee because they knew that what their customers, what their target market particularly was after was that no stress experience. So what can we do to make sure we deliver? The people they hired were trained in this way. You know, their workflows were built in this way. Any subcontractors were chosen against this kind of metric because they knew that this was their main promise, right? This was the value they were delivering for their certain segment of the market. You better believe they weren't the cheapest, right? But price wasn't the deciding factor anymore because they gave everybody else another variable to consider. And for this to work, of course, you need to keep telling them your USP. You need to keep telling them your guarantee over and over and over again. Okay, it doesn't just happen once. So a great promise or a great guarantee can go on your website, it could go on your letterhead, it goes, if you have like a quote or proposal process, it goes on there, it can go on your signage, right? Like anywhere. And this can really bridge the gap between the target customer really not knowing who you are and like, oh, hey, can we hop on a quick call? Right? It can make them curious and it can have them asking like, how do you do that? Right? And that's a great question for you to be able to answer. So I've mentioned your target audience or your target customer a couple of times already. So let's talk a little bit about why that's so important, right? Because if we want a seamless sales process, then of course you need to get that USP or guarantee in front of the right person at the right time. So in terms of your marketing materials, the importance of getting them in front of the right audience is like 10 out of 10. Okay, this is the most critical and most important thing because you can have the most compelling and the most exciting message, but if you've got the wrong audience, they won't care. Okay, that's why the offer rates 5 out of 10 for importance. And finally, you know, the copy, like the actual text that they see, that's 1/10 as important as having the right audience. And yet what we see is time after time, people start at the bottom and they spend a ton of energy wordsmithing this copy or paying a copywriter. And no disrespect to copywriters, okay? Because it can be a really, you know, a solid investment to have that work done. But it's not the first step, okay? The very best, you know, adventurous skydiving company is going to go broke fast if they're advertising in a magazine for seniors. So how clear to you is your target audience, right? Who experiences the problem that you're trying to solve? And you want to be as specific as possible here. So you can think about their demographics, their lifestyle, their location, how much they earn. And then this will help you match the benefit that you're providing to the needs or issues that these customers really care about, right? You can figure out what they value and how they make their purchase decisions. Another way to think about this is from what we know about the history of Febreze, okay? Yes, Febreze, the furniture spray. So when it was created in the lab by the scientists, the marketing team at Procter & Gamble thought they knew who the target customer would be. Okay, this is a product that eliminates odors. So the logical customer is somebody with a smelly house, right? So homeowners, pet owners, smokers, pet owners and smokers specifically were who they initially targeted with this. And guess what? It flopped completely. No one was buying it because the people who lived in those smelly houses didn't actually notice the smell, right? It did not bother them at all. As far as they were concerned, it simply wasn't a problem they needed to solve. So Febreze was repositioned as part of a daily cleaning routine. And it was marketed to a different target audience. It was marketed to people who were already spending significant time and energy house cleaning. Okay, and they added a little bit more scent. So your clean home smells as good as it looks. And that's when it started selling, okay, because they understood who they were trying to reach and the actual problem that they were trying to solve. And you'll notice, you know, pretty much everybody needs to clean their house. And you know, today's Febreze, you know, the marketing budget behind it, you know, probably does have several target audiences or several kind of niches that it appeals to. But in the beginning, when it was being launched, when it was new, the more kind of granular and specific the marketing team was able to get, and the more clearly they could articulate the value of the product and tune into the worries and the concerns of the person who was most likely to buy, that's what got the initial traction. So once you understand who exactly it is you're targeting, then your USP is a way for you to tailor your messaging so that it reaches them, them precisely. And it differentiates you from anyone who's selling to somebody, maybe kind of like them, but not them exactly. Does that make sense together? Feel free to jump in the chat. If you have any thoughts about this, any questions, any insights, any blinding flashes of the obvious, little light bulb aha moments, feel free to throw those in the chat as well, because if you're thinking it, I'm sure somebody else is thinking it as well. Okay, so as well as knowing your target audience, right, and knowing how you're going to get their attention with your USP or your guarantee, let's talk about what you're offering them. And a lot of business owners default to discounting, right? Because they assume that people are shopping on price alone. And if that were the case, then a special sale or a discount offer would be the best way to grab their attention. But what we find is that a lot of people, quite small businesses, even businesses that already have cash flow challenges, they start offering discounts of even 20 or 25% off without doing the math, because anytime you're discounting, you're cutting into your profit margin. You are giving away your profit. And if you're building a business, it's your profit, not your revenue, it's your profit that will fuel your growth. So you don't want to give it away. If your gross profit margin is 20% and you discount your prices 10%, you have just given away half your profit margin. Okay, this is straightforward math, right? If it costs you $80 to make or purchase or to pay a salary to deliver what you're selling, and you sell it for $100, then your profit is that $20, right? Between 80 and 100. But if you discount your $100 item by 10%, that's $10, and that's half your profit margin. And to a consumer, like to a customer, a 10% discount sounds like a nothing discount, okay? But it's half. So in order for that discount to be a net win for the business, they would have to do an additional 50% volume of business just to get back to where they started from. So in your business, will a 10% discount result in generating 50% more business? Most likely not. And the math changes, right, depending on what your profit margin is to start with. But generally, discounting means that you need to generate a significant volume more business by offering the discount. And often the math doesn't make sense. So is there ever a situation where you want to offer a discount? Well, maybe. The point is that you don't want to give away your profit for nothing. So just because, somebody asks for one, or, hey, can you do a lower price for me? Hey, it's Tuesday, do you have a Tuesday special? You have to be getting something out of it as well. So as an example, I offer a discount in my coaching for clients who can pay me for several months of coaching in advance. Because in that situation, there's a benefit to me, right? I can put that money to work today instead of waiting for 6 months for it. And there could be a similar equation for you, right? If somebody is buying in bulk, or if they're committing to like a long-term retainer or whatever, but there has to be benefit in this for you. So another way, right, if I've succeeded in talking you out of offering random discounts, another way to capture attention or to craft a great offer is by adding value. This means that you're giving them something extra for the same price. And because you get to choose now what that thing is, you can choose something that has little cost to you. And then it's a double win, right? The customer wins because they get to feel well looked after. They got to feel like they got a great bonus, and you get to stop discounting and giving your profit away. So maybe instead of 10% off, the offer could become, buy 10 and get 1 free, right? And if you do the math on that, maybe that works out a little bit better, a little bit more in your favor. So it could be, an extra customization, maybe an upgrade, maybe an enhanced or premium service, a goodie bag item, something that they're not expecting but will really appreciate. That could be a great kind of a value add. Do the math and figure out what makes sense. But one example, a bakery ran a promotion. So they originally thought, well, let's run a 10% off promotion and bring in some new customers. And then they kind of sat down and did the math on it. And, they've done that before. And yes, they got some new customers, but like at best, they've kind of broken even on the day. So instead, they ran a promotion in a community newsletter, giving away a free donut on a certain day. Free donut day. So these donuts typically sold for a couple of bucks, but they only cost the bakery around 30 cents each to make. So they're a high profit margin item, which makes them perfect for this kind of thing. And of course, like everybody loves a free donut, right? So a ton of people came by to redeem this offer. And on average, they spent about $3.50 on other stuff while they were in the bakery getting their free donut. So the bakery paid 30 cents for a $3.50 purchase. And the customers thought they were getting a $2 item for free. And the bakery ended up with more revenue and more profit at the end of the day than they ever would have gotten with a sale. And of course, they've got a bunch of like really happy new customers who are going to keep coming back. So it's a win-win. Of course, you don't want to give too much away, right? This, you got to figure out what the right thing is for you. And I want to switch gears a little bit because this is now kind of crossing into that sales conversation, right? When you're making the offer. And I know that most people who start a business probably don't have a lot of sales training and maybe are a little kind of, at least at first, uncomfortable in a sales situation. Maybe the identity of like salesperson isn't one that sits really comfortably. I've coached business owners who have some beliefs about salespeople, like they are the slime of the earth, basically, and they're greedy, right? And they're only looking out for themselves. And yes, there are some examples that you can point to where that was the case, but it's definitely not always true, right? Not true of the people here today. We're all salespeople. Or confident, competent salespeople, and certainly not the slime of the earth. But you kind of need to kind of change the thinking, change the mindset around sales. Often that's one of my first jobs as a coach. So I want to take a little bit of time today to give you some sales tips that you can keep in your back pocket and pull out next time you're in a sales conversation with a prospect. So these are specific tactics you can use to make sure that conversation that you're having is about the value that you provide, not the price, relative to a competitor. And I'm not sure, how many of you have sales meetings with a prospect and how many are selling online. I'm going to guess there's probably a bit of a split in the audience here today. So for those of you who are selling online, this process may be a little bit different, right? Because it's not necessarily that, synchronous back and forth conversation. It might be asynchronous, or it might be done through, your sales funnel on your website. But it does still apply to you. Okay, so this information is stuff that can be communicated through your site or through email follow-ups and things like that. So this is how I look at it. A true salesperson is somebody who is professionally helping people buy. They aren't an order taker. That's somebody who waits around for somebody to roll up and ask if they can buy something, like a drive-through window, right? All right, I'm ready to buy. They aren't a product pusher who talks about nothing but the product. Go to a family Thanksgiving dinner and talk about this great product they're trying to sell. They aren't an overseller who promises the whole entire world just to get the sale. They are a professional problem solver. And the thing is, it's impossible to solve a problem before you know what it is. And it's not always what you think it is. That's why your best weapon in sales is asking the right questions. And if you remember back to my experience buying new tires for my car, the person I ended up buying from started the call by asking, is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions to make sure I'm giving you the best information? Now, there are a couple of reasons why that question works so well. First, they are asking my permission to sell me something, right? And I'm giving it. And that changes the conversation. because now they're not a product pusher, they're not an order taker. They are helping me solve my problem, which is that I am buying a product that I don't understand very well. And the second thing they're doing is they're tuning in to everybody's favorite radio station, which is WIIFM. Okay, that's what's in it for me. Why am I in this conversation? What am I going to get out of it? Okay, so that question, can I take the time to really understand, understand where you are so I can provide the best information? That makes sure that the conversation is centered around me, the customer, right, and my needs. And I feel like they care enough to really match the product to my needs. Right? Too often, salespeople, particularly more inexperienced salespeople or salespeople who have been trained in kind of really old-fashioned or out-of-date ways of selling, can talk about how excellent the product or service is. They go on and on and on and on and on about it, or how experienced and terrific they are, or even worse, how cheap it is, right? All of the reasons why they should be your choice. But the customer might not care at all about that yet. They're sitting there going like, well, what's in it for me? So if you can tune into that station and make sure that your sales script is communicating directly to that person who's in front of you at the time, then you can engage them in a more productive conversation. So here's what that can look like in practice, okay? It's like a funnel, a question funnel. So we start at the top, asking some pretty big picture questions. Okay, if you're selling shoes, then maybe this is establishing, okay, are you looking for runners or are you looking for high fashion? What are these shoes for? When will you wear them? And then gradually you can get more detailed and more specific. Okay, okay, so these shoes are for exercise. What kind of exercise, right? Are you inside or are you outside? And once you've asked enough questions and have gotten enough information, now we can start talking about a solution, okay? But don't forget to check their temperature as you go. So how do you feel about that? Is this what you had in mind? And don't be afraid to play dumb at this stage, right? There's a lot of power in just playing dumb. Remember, they have all the answers, right? Assuming you know what they are thinking can and will backfire. So if you do a temperature check, is that the sort of thing you had in mind? And they say no, then you need to head back up the funnel to more general questions, right? You've gone down a different path. And if you have permission to continue, right? If you're doing this kind of temperature check, then you can continue and you can get more and more detailed and granular until you land on something that they've got to have it because it meets their every need. Okay. Play dumb, dig deep. And, it's not an interrogation. So if you're going to be asking a lot of questions and follow-up questions, you can't just hammer them with question after question. You got to break it up. So softeners like this can do that, Can I just ask, how many times do you golf in a typical month? If they're golf shoes, for example. And by the way, how long do you want the shoes to last? Incidentally, what? I don't know. I don't golf, so I don't know what other questions you'd ask there. But the point is, you can kind of use these question softeners to make it more of a conversation and make it a little friendlier. So if you're ever stuck for a question, then I have a few more of my killer sales questions that you can have up your sleeve. One is, can you tell me more about that? This is a great one to fall back on if you're ever at a bit of a loss or you don't know where to go next, because it just kind of keeps them talking. And they might tell you their real underlying fear or concern or frustration, right? So can you tell me more about that is another great question. And remember, WIIFM, what's in it for me? Make sure you're paying attention and giving little bits of positive feedback to keep them talking. Okay, so there's a cycle to remember. You ask a question, you listen to the answer, and then you give a little bit of a positive stroke or a little bit of information, right? Oh yeah, I can help with that. Sure, I've dealt with that issue before, or you're right about that. I think you're heading in the right direction already. Then you ask another question. Okay, so like question, listen, positive stroke. It's the cycle. And sometimes they don't answer right away. And that's your cue to stop talking, because silence can give them some time to think. Let it stretch a little bit, even if it feels kind of awkward or kind of uncomfortable, because, they will fill it often with some piece of information that can change the conversation. Another great sales question is this one. Who other than yourself will be involved in the decision making? This is especially great for B2B sales, right? Too often I see small business owners invest their time with some representative of a company who at the end of the day doesn't have the authority to spend any money. So this is a good one to ask near the beginning of the sales process, right? And then make sure you include all of the various decision makers as you proceed. Another one is this. How do you want blank to be different by time? This helps you understand the benefit they're really looking for, right? If it could be any one of a number of things. For example, if you sell marketing services, for example, you could ask, how do you want your lead flow to be different 12 months from now? Okay, and now you know maybe more about the benefit that they're really after. Another way to phrase this one would be to flip it around, right? Suppose we're having this conversation 12 months from now. Looking back, what would have to have happened to you to feel really, really happy with your lead flow? Right? Sometimes it's a different way of thinking about it. Now, when it comes to budget, obviously, finances are going to enter the conversation at some point. Like at some point, price is one factor, one of many. But you've got to make, and fairly early in your process, you probably want to make sure they can actually afford whatever it is you want them to buy. Otherwise, you're probably wasting your time. So can I ask, which is a question softener, by the way, because this can sometimes feel delicate depending on who you're talking to. Can I ask what budget you've set aside for this purchase? And this can also let you know how serious they are. Are they actually ready to make a purchase, or are they still in that kind of information gathering stage? And another one that you can ask even as a follow-up to this question, or as a standalone is, bluntly, what factors other than price are important for you to consider when making the decision? Because there will always be other factors, and price may not be the most important thing to them after all. So what factors other than price are important for you to consider when you're making this decision? So if you remember back to that question funnel, at this point, we've asked some good questions. We've gathered a lot of info. We've listened attentively. You're tuned into the customer, helping them solve a problem. And there comes a point where you're confident that you've got enough information and it's time to offer a solution, okay? Based on what you've told me, either solution X or Y will suit you best. Or, this could be, solution X will fit you best. Sometimes there's a choice, sometimes there's kind of a clear product or service that would be the answer, okay? And then don't forget to check their temperature, right? How does that fit with what you had in mind? Yeah. Or which one of those fits best with what you have in mind. And this is now like you're pretty close now to decision time, and you'll notice that this is not pushy, right? This is not like quote unquote salesy, pushy salesperson. What you're doing is you're giving them time to think. You're allowing them to bring up any areas of concern that you haven't addressed yet before you kind of go in to close the sale. Assuming that you get a positive response at that point, that's what's left, right? You've got to close it. So at this point, if they give you a positive response to your offer, solution X, oh yeah, solution X, that sounds like it's probably a good fit for us. So let's assume they're going to buy, right? So then you can drop a super detailed question, would it be okay if I outlined what we need to do to get that underway? Or, okay, well, let's get started. We can set an appointment for next week on Tuesday or Thursday. which one works for you, right? Or even another one would be, okay, great. How would your company typically pay for this type of purchase? And, I guess what you ask specifically at this point in the conversation depends on your product, your service, your industry, but these are some ideas, right? So it's the type of question that leads to that next step rather than more questions. You're closing off the funnel. Question time is finished. Now we're taking action. We're going to a next step. And then, the final confirmation that they're really, really ready to pull out their wallet, okay? And, this might depend a little bit on your own personality, your own style, but, it could be, wow, based on everything we've talked about, we'd have to be crazy not to give this a try, right? Or a lower stakes version would be, well, what do you think we should do from here? And that takes the pressure off a little bit. If if you suspect there might still be an objection to overcome, what do you think we should do from here? Gives them the space to bring that to the conversation. And then you can, great. Let me explain exactly what's involved in purchasing the solution, right? So at the close or before the close, at some point in this question funnel, they may tell you why they don't think they can or should go ahead with the purchase. And, it sounds like many of you have been doing some selling for a little while. You've probably heard these objections before. Typically, this is something to do with having no money or having no time, okay? Sometimes these objections are final, right? They just aren't interested. But often they aren't, right? Often there is a professional kind of problem-solving oriented way to overcome the objection. So it's definitely worth having a script for dealing with your most common objections so they don't throw you off. And if the objection is that, the price is too high, they don't have money, maybe there's a way to show that, employing your product or service will help them save money or make money to cover the costs. Or if they have no time, maybe there's a way to show that, by implementing your solution, maybe it will actually free up some of their time. So there's still often kind of a conversation to be had, right? So the script might look something like this. First, agreeing with them, right? Not arguing with them. So if you argue, you're not going to win. So you can agree that yes, of course, I understand there are financial considerations, and you know what? Yeah, you're right. Bringing in a new product, process, solution, that can be time consuming. So this is actually another great reason. Is there any other reason besides that one that would prevent you from making the purchase? Right? So what I'm hearing is that if budget weren't an issue, would you want to go ahead? And if they say yes, then if you can invest a little bit more time to take a look and see what you can do. And if they say no, actually there's something else, then you might find a secondary objection, which quite often is actually the real one, right? So once you've collected the various objections, now you can continue with your questioning, right? You can find out, if it is a money thing, what's it costing them now to not have your solution, right? Or what is the problem if you're selling if you're solving a problem for them, right? Every business is probably solving some kind of problem for its customers. What does the problem that they have now, what does that cost them? Okay, so that might reframe that kind of budget decision for them. Now, when you're in a sales role, you can ask, fairly serious questions. If you want that serious conversation, then investing in your own role and your own kind of identity as a sales professional makes sense. So I have just like a quick list here of things to keep in mind as you're kind of setting yourself up as a professional problem solver. This is kind of like a checklist, right? If you're not doing these things, if you don't have these things in your kit now, it might be worth thinking a little bit about them. And we can touch more on them afterwards if you like. But having a formal sales kit having material at the ready to share, dressing well. You don't necessarily need to be in a tux, but you probably don't want to be, you don't want to come across unprofessionally. Being on time, gaining that reputation for punctuality, trustworthiness, that's always important in sales. Keeping in touch, if you are kind of building to a formal sales meeting, then keeping in touch in the build up to the meeting, keeping in touch after the meeting. Pre-framing a prospect or positioning a prospect, making sure that as they get to the meeting, they're ready to make a decision, right? They're ready, they know what the decision to be made is. Doing your homework on them. Like if you're selling a $2 widget, then maybe you don't need to do a lot of homework on who your customers are. But if you're selling something B2B, for example, and you're meeting with somebody from a company, then you probably want to know a little bit about them or a lot about them in advance. And using your testimonials. And testimonials can be from customers. Often they're from, your best customers. I have testimonials from people I've never sold anything to because they've come in for a meeting and they've said, wow, I'm not ready for coaching, but I got some value from that. And those testimonials are equally as valuable to me as ones from clients, because I can use them in my sales process to get people excited to come in and have a meeting. A couple more things, build a rapport. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but as you, the relationship is important with the prospect and even more important with the customer. They say, I have little kids, and there's like the golden rule. The golden rule is what I grew up with of, treat other people as you want to be treated. My kids in school now have the platinum rule, which is treat other people as they want to be treated. And that's a great one for sales conversations as well. It's not always about what you want. It's about what they want. Find out what's most important to them. Ask lots of questions. Always follow up. Send thank you cards. This goes to like building that rapport, building that relationship. A handwritten card goes an awfully long way. Ask for referrals. Even if you don't get the business, there's no reason not to say, to outright ask for who else do you know who could be interested in this solution, and would you make an introduction? And be consistent, right? Everybody you speak to should have roughly the same experience. So things like sales scripts, for example, are one way to be really consistent with the people you speak to. We have just like a few minutes left here. So this is, I think, one of my last slides, second to last slide. But this is one final consideration, right? Because the money that you spend and the energy that you spend upfront on marketing, on having first conversations or attracting prospects, the customer most of the time chews up most of the profit on the first sale. So the key to enhancing profitability, increasing your profitability, is to bring them back, right, as repeat purchasers, so that the second, third, fourth, fifth time they buy from you, you're making more and more profit off that person. So this is a formula that we use to kind of to frame that. So retention and referrals. If you want to retain customers, or if you want people to shop with you more often, if you want referrals from your customers, retention plus referrals equals relationship plus results. What is your relationship with that person? After they make a purchase, do you stay in touch? Have you sent them a handwritten note? Have you acknowledged that that you appreciate the business? If they have any problems or issues, are you there in a kind of customer service role? And the results, right? If you sold them a solution to a problem, did the solution solve the problem, right? And are you kind of proactively following up and making sure that that's the case, right? So, are they leaving satisfied for having done business with you? Or are they delighted by having done business with you? Because if they're delighted, guess what? That's where the referrals come from. Is there a wow factor to doing business with you? So building the relationship with your customer base and making sure the results are as good as they can be for everybody that you do business with naturally leads to retention of customers, repeat business, and referrals. Okay, so that's an important formula. So I'm going to close with a quote from the guy who created the business coaching industry and founded ActionCOACH way back in the 90s. He said, words can inspire, thoughts can provoke, but only action brings you closer to your dreams. And action is a very carefully chosen word, right? Because there's a difference between being in motion and being in action. If you are in motion, that's great. You're planning, you're strategizing, you're learning, right? You might feel a sense of motion through, a session like this that generates some ideas. Maybe you have a sense of what you might like to do next, right? Maybe there's another level for your business that's possible. And action is a specific behavior that delivers an outcome. Okay, so thinking of like 5 new marketing strategies is motion. Calling somebody and asking for their business is action. Okay, so the learning and the planning and the strategizing are essential, but it's the action that gets results. And as humans, we really have a natural tendency towards emotion, because that gives us like all the satisfaction of feeling like we're making progress with none of the risk of failure. So as you're doing this work to create a USP, create a guarantee, refine your sales process, develop a sales script, think about handling objections, think about positioning, think about asking for repeat and referral business. As we're doing this work, don't let, preparation become procrastination. Okay. 99% of the time, good enough is good enough, and get it out and kind of test and measure and see what the results are, what the change is. Yes, now it's time to get into action. So let's talk about next steps just for a hot second here, because I know that you came here today for information, for training, and I hope you got it. I hope everybody picked up tips and ideas that they can take and use right away. Okay, and if that's you, right, if you wanted a couple of quick tips and quick ideas and you're not ready to talk in depth about anything else, that's great. Okay. If you did get value from this, I would absolutely love it if you jump over onto LinkedIn. If you search for Caitlin Blundell, you will find me. If you could leave me a recommendation, that would be amazing, to say that you attended and this kind of session might help other business owners. But if you are sitting there thinking, okay, well, I've got the information, now I need to execute, right? It's not what you know, it's what you do with what you know. I'd love to help you. And, if you think that a second conversation is in order, what I'd like to do is I'd like to offer you a free coaching session for being here and joining the call with Beck today. So basically the first one's on me. We'll use the time to get some work done on your business, on your specific questions, your specific situation that you're in. And my guarantee is that it will make good use of your time. Okay. That is, of course, no obligation, no strings attached. But if you are curious about business coaching, it would also give you a chance to kind of evaluate whether that makes sense for you and whether I can help. So I am going to put my email address on the slide. Here it is. Jen can put you in touch with me if you're already in touch with Jen. And I can also put a booking link in the chat. So I'll do that. I'll shut down the screen share right now, and I'll put the booking link in the chat, and that's probably the easiest and quickest way to book that with me. For now, I think we have about 10 minutes, so I am here for questions. Jen, can I grab a quick drink of water and turn it over to you to moderate a Q&A?
100%. So thanks everyone for joining. We will follow up with the recording link, so you'll be able, if you missed something or you want to watch something that Caitlin spoke about, you can rewatch that. That'll be easy to do. And as she mentioned, for those of you on the call, you're welcome to book a session with Caitlin, courtesy of Caitlin Blundell, the Action Coach. So that's an amazing bonus for being here. So thanks to everyone for hopping on. It looks like there is a question that's come in from John via the chat. I work with emerging franchise brands, one being in Cambridge, the other in Keswick. What can I do to convince prospects to come and visit and experience the store to assist them in helping with the purchase?
Okay. Does John have the ability to come off mute? John, can you talk to us at all?
Let me see. I think I should be able to give him the ability. Yes.
Nice. Hi, John. So the prospects, are they buying a franchise or are they buying a product?
They are buying a franchise.
Buying a franchise. Okay. So, and they want them to come and experience the store to kind of help move them along.
Correct. And the reason why I find that these are only one stores, they're one-off. They're emerging brands, so they're not like there's 4 or 5 stores in the chain. So I'm thinking it's a credibility issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So whereabouts in the sales process would you like them to visit the store? Is this like as they're kind of seeking information and kind of thinking about it, or is this as they're like ready to make that final decision?
I think I want them to experience the store, to see it, to feel it, to touch it, so they can visualize exactly what we're selling.
Right.
And that the business plan, the business model that's in place is a sound model. You can only do so much talking and showing them numbers.
Mm-hmm.
They need to come out and see it and touch it, as I'm saying. And that's
And do they know, like going back to WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? Do they agree that they need to see it and touch it, or like would they come to that conclusion on their own?
They have not committed to coming and seeing it. I don't know if it's a distance, because it's it's an hour drive each way to come and sing it. I'm not sure what it is, because they're both sound franchises. The product is good, it's solid. One's very, very new and exciting in the marketplace, which is well known to everybody. But it's just getting that people to come and see it. And that's what I'm finding the challenges.
It sounds like, possibly one possibility would be kind of asking for them to make a kind of investment of time and to put themselves in that position of maybe pushing them quickly towards a purchase decision. Maybe that's what they're understanding, right? That you're asking me to drive an hour and you're asking me to come see this store, and I don't even know if I want to buy a business right now, right?
Correct. Good point.
So maybe there's a little bit more positioning that could happen. Maybe there's a conversation, like a step in the sales process before that. I don't know, is there any possibility to make it more of like a special occasion or an event, like hey, we're having a franchise day, and kind of create some urgency, or make it something that they feel like they can't possibly miss.
We've done that. I've done a discovery day 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, I was competing with the Blue Jays big game on Sunday, and it was pouring rain, and I expect that had to play into it. So I've scheduled another one for Monday. So mass emails, text messaging, phone calls, all those things have been sent out. The other one is a dispensary, and it's just a little bit more difficult to stage an open house in a dispensary environment at this stage.
I'm wondering too if it has anything to do, like, I know that there's still people that are like cautious about like returning to events, gatherings, and it could have a little to do with COVID, I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But I've stated that we're sensitive to that. Numbers are restricted.
Yeah.
Please let us know so we can control the numbers that are coming.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in the target market? Like, are these prospects, are they the right prospects who would seriously consider buying?
The only prospects that I'm zeroing in on are the ones that said they're ready to purchase. I was at the recent franchise show, came back with about 60 prospects.
Right.
Out of those, there's probably 15 that I said they're serious. Those are the ones I'm really focusing on.
Yeah.
The
So
other
it sounds
ones
like,
are
it sounds like there is a disconnect there, right? Like, if they're serious about purchasing a franchise, and if they have a bit of information about yours, then why, like what, if I was buying a franchise and it had a physical location, then going there would be a natural stop, right? To see it in action. Have you asked them what's preventing them from coming and seeing it?
What I'm suspecting is that these are emerging brands. So one of the questions they always ask us from the beginning is, how many stores do you have? Unfortunately, I can only say one store, in each category. How long you've been in business for, that sort of thing. Of course, they're asking numbers, financial information, which due to franchise laws, I'm prohibited to disclose on that. So these are the key questions that they're asking that I'm having some issues answering. Gaining
I
accountability and
suspect,
stuff.
yeah, I suspect that's the factor there, rather than the distance or the time involved. They're not maybe as serious as we would like them to be.
Correct.
Yeah. Why don't we have like a follow-up chat? We'll take a
Sure.
little bit of time and go through it, because there may be some ways to position the businesses that are for sale, the franchises that are for sale, in a different way that makes them more compelling, or to handle those objections differently, so that the prospects are like at least excited enough to come out and check out the store in action.
Sure. I'll send you an email. And
I'll put my
set up a
email
time.
address in the chat as well. There looks like there's another question in there as well. What are some ways to find a niche that can afford you?
I'm going to unmute Antoinette.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hello, Antoinette.
So yeah, I guess the tricky part is at the very beginning stage of how you get exposure to some of these people that might be your clients. So one of the areas that I service is that I also offer resume design services to people looking for work. But often those are the same people who don't necessarily have a lot of money. So how do you niche into maybe a higher level, so maybe an executive level group, where it's like a B2C scenario?
So you're selling resume design, people who are designing their resume. Currently, you're finding that the niche you're marketing to is currently unemployed. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's just one branch of my business. I market to a few different fields, but this is one branch that I'm now thinking about exploring further. And my ideal client for this particular service would be an executive level person who just wants to add extra flair to their resume because it just makes them look better overall. But I don't happen to know an awful lot of executive level people.
So I guess the first point is that I would kind of challenge the assumption that the niche has to be broke, right? That this niche has no money, because there are lots of people who have a job and they'd like to leave, they'd like to make a change, especially, what we're seeing right now in the US is, and in Canada as well, but, a lot of the data is from the US. It's the great resignation, right? Millions and millions of people leaving their jobs and trying to find something that excites them more, or they're more passionate about, or has a different impact, or uses their time differently, or allows for remote work, or, whatever. So I suspect that there is a market there that is able to pay. They're just currently in jobs right now, right? Maybe they're near the start of their job hunt. Maybe they're going, okay, things seem to have stabilized for now. Maybe this is a good time for me to jump. So in terms of connecting with them, LinkedIn, do you use LinkedIn right now to promote this
quite
service?
heavily. Yeah, my favorite.
So are you getting leads? I guess of the leads that you are getting for this service now, is there one source that you can pinpoint where you could say the best leads are coming from?
So far it's been referrals. And as I mentioned, this is just an emerging area of service. Like the other areas of service are pretty well supplied. But this is something where I really see a strong need, because I know that there is that churn and there is that turnover. So I'm just trying to figure out how to tap into it.
Sure. What have you looked at strategic alliances or partnerships?
I've thought about it, but I don't really know where to start.
Yeah, so, the job hunting business is like, there's various kind of career supports. There's various, I don't know, municipal agencies, not to name any, who help people, who are trying to do something differently. There are executive coaches, there are HR agencies that are super busy right now. Maybe it might take, you could think about, who else markets to the same target as me, but maybe offers something different.
Mm-hmm. My question with that, and sorry to take up so much of your time, but really one last question for you is, that's something that's been recommended to me as well. But the question remains, what's in it for the agency? So if I, made an alliance with, an executive search firm, and I was here to say, okay, if any of your clients need, a redesign or a resume refresh.
Well, okay, what's the advantage of having a resume done by Antoinette?
When people get eyes on it, they're more likely to feel that if your resume looks professional and modern, that's the feeling they have about you. So it immediately gets people to stop flipping through the pile of resumes, and yours is more memorable and you're more likely to get a call back.
Okay, so that's the advantage to the customer, right? They're more likely to get a call back.
Yeah.
The advantage on the flip side of that was, it would be maybe for one of your strategic partners might be something around placing people more quickly, or finding a better fit for people more quickly, or getting a more accurate synopsis of their actual skills. Maybe they could, if they can place people more quickly, and if people can command, a higher offer. Okay. Then those are kind of tangible benefits.
That's good. Thank you.
Right. So again, it comes down to figuring out who you're marketing to. What are they looking for? Right. So what's in it for me? So those strategic partners are looking for something different. Maybe it's not design, but maybe it's, speed or price point or value or whatever. Right. And so that your pitch changes depending on who you're talking to. Okay. That's great. Thank you. Welcome. I think we have one more, right?
One more question, and they've asked to be unmuted. It is Obey. Obey, I've unmuted you, or you have to unmute yourself, but I've given you the ability to unmute yourself. Are you there, Obey? So I'll just read out the question. I run an online clothing store. I also have an eBay store and sell on Facebook Marketplace. How can I increase my sales, and how can I convince people to buy more items?
Mm-hmm. So in terms of increasing sales, there's two things you can look at, right? If you're looking to increase your number of customers, the two things you can look at, the two kind of input factors, are the number of leads and your conversion rate. Okay, so if 100 people look at your store and 10 actually make a purchase, then your conversion rate is 10%. So quite often people have an assumption that in order to have more customers, what they really need is more leads, right? I need to do more marketing. I need to get in front of more eyeballs. I need, I need more attention, more traffic. And quite often the traffic that you're getting is actually pretty good. And the thing is, you need to convert more, right? If you could convert another 5 out of every 100, and you could boosting your conversion rate to 15% from 10%, then maybe it's a different business. So I guess we have to look at the numbers of the business to figure out where you are on those two metrics. Okay, how many leads are coming in? How many people are kind of visiting the store or putting up their hand in some way and saying, hey, I might be interested. And then how many of them are converting? And once you measure those two things, then you can start thinking about which one how do I tackle both of them? And the nice thing is there's like, it's leads times conversion equals number of customers. So any changes you make, you get kind of a multiplier effect. So a small increase in each has a pretty big impact because it multiplies through. So yeah, getting, we could have a conversation about strategies to get more. I mean, getting more people to your store. Maybe it's something to do with, referrals and word of mouth. Maybe it's something to do with SEO. Maybe it's something to do with promoting differently, or, fishing in a different pond, finding a new place to promote the store. If it's conversion, then maybe it's having a clear call to action. Maybe it's the offer that you're making. Maybe it's, the kind of general, I don't know what you sell. So, but there are various things you can do to kind of encourage people to buy. And then of course, how often do people come back and buy from you? Because we know from the research that it costs 6 to 10 times more to get a new customer than to get an existing customer or a past customer to come back. Okay, so how well and how frequently do you communicate with your database of past customers to keep them coming back and to remind them that you exist and that you have this stuff? And then how do you get them to buy more? Do you want fries with that, right? Like what add-on items could you offer that might be an extra $1 or $2 that doesn't cost you anything near that much, right? So you can kind of get them to add some things into their order. It could be a question of bundling things together. I was in Home Depot and I noticed that they did a really good job of this for their paint supplies, because you can buy everything individually, right? You can buy your paintbrush, you can buy your tray, you can buy your drop cloth. And then they have this like pre-done pack of like, here's everything you need to paint a room, right? And it's all done for you. And you know what, if I'm painting and I already have, I think I have a paint tray and I may have enough paintbrushes, but I don't really know, I'm probably just gonna buy the pack, right? I'm probably not gonna go and try and pick and choose each and every item, because it's just faster, right? It's more expedient. So what can you bundle together, right? If somebody's buying product A, can they also buy product B? And how do you kind of bring that forward to them and make that offer to them, make it agreeable? So that's a couple of ideas. If you want to chime in and send me, you're off mute. So did that answer the question?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
This is Kobe. Yes, I run an online store, and most of my store sales come from eBay, from listing from eBay, and some few sales come from Facebook Marketplace, and only a few from my website. So, like, how I can increase my sales and where people can buy more than one item? Usually, people just buy one item.
Mm-hmm. So I think I just answered that a little bit, but we can go into it a little bit more. Where do your current leads come from, or your current customers? How do they find you?
Oh, from eBay. I list I sell mostly jackets, and from eBay.
So they're just kind of finding you through the eBay search function?
Oh yeah, eBay search function, and from eBay.com. Yeah, I have listing on eBay, so people buy from eBay store, from eBay online.
Okay, I'll be honest, eBay is not necessarily my wheelhouse, but yeah, if you want more traffic, it sounds like they're coming from eBay. They're searching for the product rather than searching for your store in particular. So I guess I'd say the same thing, that it's easier to sell to somebody who's already bought from you than somebody brand new. So keeping in touch with people who have made a purchase in the past, letting them know when you have new items for sale could be a good strategy. Asking for referrals, asking for permission to stay in touch with them. Something like a promotional newsletter, an email newsletter could be one way to do it. Hey, thanks for your purchase. If you're interested in items like this, I have lots available through different channels. Sign up to stay in touch, or sign up to join our club. There's a special, value added thing available for people who are part of my inner circle, that kind of thing, to kind of make people make you their first choice every time could be a good strategy.
Okay. Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you.
As Caitlin said, you can book a follow-up. So if you need to maybe have further discussions offline, so that she can learn more about your business, and that's open to you. I think she put the link to book a strategy session in the chat.
Yeah.
I do want to be mindful of everyone's time because it is 12:40, so we did go a little over. But I just want to thank Caitlin again for your time. Caitlin is actually presenting again at the end of the month, and I'm just going to quickly pull up the date. Just looking it up right now.
Yeah,
6 Steps to a Better Business, the 26th at 4 p.m. 4 to 5:30. So it's in 2 weeks, Tuesday, 4 to 5:30. And I'll put the link to the event in the chat. So you're welcome. If you want to, listen to Caitlin again, you're more than welcome to join us. It's a free session again, and it's later in the day. So we do know that sometimes midday works for some, but afternoons, late afternoons, it's great for others. So thank you again, Caitlin, so much for your time this morning. And I will follow up with a link to the recording so that you can rewatch the webinar if you'd like. And we will send you the resource that Caitlin was speaking about earlier. So,
Definitely.
thank you. I hope everyone has a wonderful Friday afternoon and a wonderful weekend. So we'll see
Thank you
everyone.
for having me.
Thanks again. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.